So happy Wednesday, everybody. This is our second episode of Pain and Revival podcast. We're going to be releasing new episodes every Wednesday. Nevaeh and myself, Dr. Michael Halleran. We're coming from Georgia and New York, so we kind of spread across the country. But before we get started, we just want to give a shout out to, let's make sure we get the bottle right, Saratoga Water, who's our first sponsor, who's actually taken over our podcasts. So one of the things we want to talk about is our topics are usually pain and revival, but today we're going to focus on revival. And one of the topics we want to talk about that I want to share, let me first start with a story, is this how our body can revive, which is always interesting. I went to the eye doctor last Thursday, and to give you the background on myself, I am going to be 65 years of age in December. And Nevaeh?
15 in July.
Okay. So there's a little bit of an age difference between the two of us. So it's two different perspectives on life and health. And when I went to the eye doctor, I hadn't been there in 18 months. And he said to me, he goes, "Doc, let me ask you a question." I said, "What's that?" He said, "The last time I saw you, your eyes were better from the time before that. And now, 18 months later, your right eye stayed the same and your left eye is even 50% better than it was the last time I saw you." He says, "What did you do? Like, how is it possible that you're going to be 65 years of age and your body keeps getting healthier?" And I said, "Well, Doc, I'm just into revival." I said, my whole focus in life is just to get my body to regenerate healthier. Mm-hmm. Got any thoughts on that, my friend?
No, not really, but I want to know how, can you explain to our audience? I know how, but how do we do that? How did you get your body to do that naturally?
Well, what's cool is at 15, our body doesn't really have to focus on revival because you know what? 15, our main goal is 16. Our
right.
body, most of the time are healthy with the exception of genetic problems. But through different things we can do with our body, we can get our bodies healthier. And it can come from mental health. It can come from spiritual health. It can come from physical health. But the key topics that we want to address each week are how we take care of ourselves from different traumas our body have been through. Those traumas can be a physical trauma. Okay, they could be a mental trauma, or they could be actually a spiritual trauma. And those three things are what cause our bodies to become stressed, under stressed, and those are the things that break our body down. And our goal is to do the opposite, change those thought processes, change those past traumas to get our body to start working better.
Yeah, so can you explain how our mental traumas and mental health, if our mental health is bad, how does that affect our physical health? Like, what if we're doing everything right, we're exercising, we're eating right, we're doing all the right things, but our mental health is bad? What does that do to our body?
Great question. Is mental health, well, everyone hears about mental health nowadays. Unfortunately, this past weekend in New York, we had a gentleman, maybe 60 years of age, 65 years of age. I just read the story this morning, but I had to stop because it was depressing. And his mom passed away, and his family was going to sell the house that he lived in. He thought he had nowhere to live. So he took a shotgun and killed off 4 people in his family, and then himself on the front lawn of the house in a chair in broad daylight. So that's some serious mental trauma. Now, what would drive somebody to get to be that point? Well, now that you look more into the story, he has a past history of mental issues. If those issues maybe had been addressed, okay, or maybe had been addressed differently, the outcome could have been different. So mental stress is something that puts so much, it's something that affects us 24 hours a day. If you have physical stress and say you have a knee that bothers you, you can come home from work or come home from school and you can get in a chair or ottoman, put your leg up or lay in bed, and the stress comes off your knee. But the problem with mental stress is it's with you 24 hours a day. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. You go to sleep thinking about it. You wake up first thing in the morning thinking about it. So one of the key things you have to first do is we have to address it as an issue. Okay, that's number one. You have to realize or have a person realize that they do have a mental issue. Now, we're not giving advice on what you should do with your mental issues. I mean, that's up to your doctor, your psychiatrist, your psychologist, whoever you're working with. So I don't want people to think that we're trying to change what you do. We're just going to give you tips on what to do. And number one is you have to seek mental health, okay, and therapy. Number two is you can change things, okay? You can change things through exercise, the way we eat, different things we put into our body. And sometimes there are times where we have to take a medication. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit also.
Yeah, so you just mentioned sleeping and when you're asleep. I feel like a common misconception is that even though you're mentally like not there, you're stressed out during the day, that when you go to sleep, that's like your brain shuts off, but our subconscious brain is still like going and still thinking about that, and everything's still going. So really, when you're sleeping, you really actually do have to work on the problem. You can't just go to sleep, because it's not actually working on it. You're still thinking about it. It's still affecting you mentally. It's still affecting the amount of rest you get, how good you get of the rest. So I think that we should like keep that in mind. Not that I'm a doctor, but like we should keep that in mind and make sure that we're working on our mental health and change our perspective on things.
How would you change your perspective on something?
That's hard. I'm working on it now, but you can just look at it differently. Like, people talk about the half glass, like is it half full or is it half empty? People talk about that all the time. Like just changing the way you see things, like make everything positive. There's always something good in a bad situation. Like when something bad happens to me, doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, but when something bad happens, I always try to look in like, what is this for me? What is God trying to show me? What is he trying to teach me? What can I get from this? Because if you just like suffer in it and you're like, yeah, this happened and it's horrible and I'm so sad, and like, what is that doing for you? It's not helping you. You're just suffering in the past, but this is the future and this is the present. And it doesn't work that way.
So let me ask you a question now. Coming from someone that's 65 years of age, I know the stress at 65 years of age. What kind of stress do you think you have at 15 years of age? Because the average person says, oh, she's 15. What stress does she have?
Well, for me, it's different. I mean, I'm not like the average 15-year-old, but like, I went through a lot of abuse with my mom, and I come from like my biological family is really like toxic, and most of them are drug addicts and alcoholics, and they're just like crazy. And none of them, here's the key theme in all of them, they've all been through severe trauma in childhood, and none of them have ever been strong enough or decided that it was in the past and that they should move forward and break the generational curse, which you can do. It's hard, but you can do it. So that's like, and it's not as rare as we think. Like a lot of kids go through different things. Like even if your parents are getting divorced or you're raised by a single mom, that's still traumatic. From the second that we're born, I mean, we're born with trauma. Like getting birthed is like that's a traumatic process. Like,
Yes.
So everyone has trauma, whether you realize it or not, but especially with kids and teenagers who have been through like abuse and different things like that, it's really hard, but you can do it and you can revive yourself.
And what's interesting is you talked about, you hit a great topic. You said generational curses. So in the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, there's the curses for obedience, okay, and the curses for disobedience. And we talk about generational blessings and we talk about generational curses. And that's one of the reasons we want to do the podcast, is we're trying to help people so they have more generational blessings. Like we have nothing to gain other than this. We were fortunate enough to get Saratoga to come sponsor our podcast, but we have nothing to gain from this other than the knowledge that a 15-year-old and a 65-year-old have combined together. So between the two of us, we have 80 years of knowledge. Okay?
Right.
I have more of it. I got 65 years. She's got 50. But as I say all the time, she's wise beyond her years. So one of the key things is I see with people when I take care of patients in the office, psychological stress is the hardest thing to take care of. If you have physical stress and they sit at a computer all day because they're a Wall Street executive, I say, look, get an ergonomically designed chair, get your spine checked once a week to be adjusted, and your body's going to get better. Now, with a psychological stress, there's different things you can do. Exercise to increase our endorphin production, going out, nature, sunshine, vitamin D therapy, all those things added. But what happens is if you don't first address what the issue is, and we're focusing just on the past, okay, not to use the cliche, so simple, but they always call today the present for a reason, because it's a present, it's a gift from God that allows us to say, hey, you know what? Today I'm blessed with this day. Okay, when I think about that family this past couple of days on Long Island that don't have that option right now, because one of the people in the family was so stressed, didn't have the right outlet, didn't have the right knowledge, didn't have the right therapy, didn't have the right medication, whatever it may be that gentleman was missing, is that we can't undo. But it just makes us open our eyes and say, hey, you know what? This is a real thing. Like pain is a real thing. I hear moms and dads and the kids come into the office, and they even just talk about bullying in school. Now, when I was in school, there was bullying, but kids were a little bit different. Like you just went and you just had like a fight in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
It's like bullying. There's cyberbullying. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that's just overwhelming. Like, what do you think about that stuff?
You know, I think it's a lot of it's teenagers and we're immature and we just say things because and the reason that most teenagers will say something like on online really is because they don't have the guts to say something in person, so
Yeah.
they're going to say it to you online. And in person it's just they're insecure and they're trying to find something, they're trying to belittle you so that they can feel better about themselves. And so honestly what I would say, like if you're getting bullied or something, just like pray for them. And if you do that, if you don't, then just like, I don't know, like hope or something, like just understand that they're going through something that doesn't give them a right to treat you that way. But at the end of the day, you can't stop what someone else is going to do to you. You cannot control anyone's actions. I've tried. You can't do it. You just have to accept that that's the way that they're going to be and kind of move on from it and just understand that they're insecure and they don't really know. And lots of people say that what people say about you is a reflection of themselves. So if someone's being rude to you, it's probably just that's how they're feeling that day. You don't know what that person's going through. You don't know what's going on at home. I was a bit of a bully in like 5th grade and 6th grade.
What?
I was. I really was.
Can't believe it.
Shocking news. So
Yeah.
no, I was, but I was also going through a lot at home. That doesn't give me an excuse. I should have never treated anyone that way.
Yeah.
But you never know what someone is going through. That's just the reason why I'm saying that. It didn't give me a right to bully people, to make people feel bad about themselves. But it made me feel good in the moment. And I think it's a point of like trying to get someone to feel what you're feeling. Like, I'm hurting really bad, so let me make you hurt. It's kind of like a revenge thing, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the law of attraction is, you know what, we attract into our lives the same thing that we think about. So if we're thinking about negative things about somebody else, what do? You attract more negativity into your life. So that's another big tip that I tell people all the time. I said, look, you got to think great thoughts. Mm-hmm. What you put in here manifests, no matter what you think. Okay, if you want to talk about something enough, or you want to bully somebody enough, or psychological stress, or you want to lie, cheat, steal, whatever you want to do, that all just comes back. And some people like the word karma, and I don't use the word karma, but I do say, hey, you know what? The universe is made up of an energy. Okay, there's no doubt in our mind. So what happens is that energy, it's either attractive or repulsive. So the more you put out into the world, okay, the more you attract. What you see a lot of times on social media is a lot of people just like posting the negative things that happen. So many more positive things in the world than negative. But what happens is people get more attraction to the negative. And the reason is they're usually negative. Like people like myself that are positive, I'm only reading something positive. The only reason I read the story about this family the other day, I said, oh, that'd be great to talk about for our Wednesday podcast, is to let people know this is a real thing. This is a beautiful family. I don't know the details, but you know what? This is a beautiful family, and it was a sister, his cousin, his niece, and it was his family that now is no longer here. And the reason that is psychological stress affects our brain. And what happens when our brain is affected, it causes such a torquing and twisting along our spinal cord. And in chiropractic, we call that a subluxation. And by gently checking someone's spine and removing that interference, it just lets the messages from here go through the spine as close to 100% as possible. And when you're clear and your nervous system is clear, you think good thoughts. You think positive thoughts. You think happy thoughts. Those are all the things that can help benefit people under psychological stress. Is it the only answer? No. But is it an important answer? 100%. What do you think?
No, I mean, I totally agree. As someone who does struggle with like mental health sometimes, it is important to get yourself checked because it really does help you function better. And although it doesn't heal, it's not like you get adjusted and then like all your mental worries go away, because the world we live in is stressful. There's so much going on. There's so many different things happening, the news and just everything that's happening is so stressful. So obviously I think, this is what I think, that you're not ever going to be fully 100% stress-free, because we live in a stress world. The world around us is stress. So especially if you're in like a big city or something, like it's just stressful. Like there's traffic and but if you change your mindset, you can look at it as an unstressed thing, and getting checked will help you to be able to change your mindset, to be able to have that growth mindset, and to help you just be a better human and function and treat people kindly. Like that man that you're talking about, he was going through something really severe. And it's not an excuse. He should not have brutally murdered his whole family. But it makes sense. I understand where he's coming from. And there's something to learn about. And I also wanted to add that I don't think we should I think it's good to stay away from reading things like that. Like stay out of the news, don't be in it so much. But also don't be so innocent where it's like you think nothing bad happens, because bad stuff does happen. And I think that's where pain and revival comes in, because we need a balance of both. Like you need to understand that bad stuff does happen to people.
Oh yeah.
You can still come out of it, and as long as you want to. And that's the thing, you have to want to. Like I've been sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you talk to certain people and you're trying to help them, but they're like, and they always find an excuse on why that solution is not going to work. And if they would just sit down and be like, you know what, let me try this, instead of just knocking it immediately, because you never know what might work. There's always a solution to everything.
They always say you never know how far-reaching something you think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. So one of the key things we want to stress on our weekly podcast is we want people to realize is, you know what? The world is a good place. It's a really, really, really good place. There's stress in the world, okay? But the stress can also be a motivator. Like I remember years ago when I took out my first mortgage to buy a home, there was a stress of paying that payment every month, okay? When you get 30 days backed up and all of a sudden you don't have the money, the stress level increases. You find reasons to wake up during the night to think about them coming to take your house. And what we do is we take something sometimes which is small, because truthfully, if you don't pay your mortgage payment on the 31st day, they don't come take your house. But in your mindset, you start thinking that. You manifest it. You see your wife and your kids, now they have to leave the house. And now all the neighbors are saying, oh my God, they lost their house. And you figure out this whole thing. On the 31st day, all of a sudden, all the money's available. You can pay the mortgage payment. Now you don't think about it for another 29 or 30 days. Mm-hmm. So like Nevaeh said, stress is real all the time, okay? But stress can also motivate us. So just like pain can motivate us. But the key is we always want to focus on revival. Like our body always regenerates. And that's how we started talking about this topic today with me going to the doctor. The doctor says, Doc, well, how do you regenerate? I said, well, I eat good. I said, I exercise. I said, I keep positive thoughts. I read the Bible every day. And I get my spine checked, my nervous system every week. And he goes, what do you mean? How do you get your nervous system checked? Now, here's a doctor who's a very educated man. And he was open and receptive to say, hey, you know what? That makes sense. Like if your brain and nervous system control your eyes, do you want to make sure your brain and nervous system are giving 100% nerve supply to your eyes? Do you think that would be beneficial to your eye health? Well, yeah, I mean, that's simple. That's your overall health. The better our body functions, the healthier it is. So what we put in our mouth, the thoughts we put in our mind, getting our spines checked, all those things keep our body healthier. What do you think?
No, I agree. Also, I know there's a story that goes around. I'm not sure. I'm sure some people haven't seen it, but I'm sure you have. It's this guy. He's talking. I think he was giving a TED talk or something, and he's talking about when your check engine light comes on in your car. You're not like, why is that light on? You know why the light's on, and you take it to the auto shop, and you have them fix the problem. You have them go in and they do whatever they do to turn the check engine light on. I don't know what it is, but I'm a woman. I don't know what that is. So
no, you just smile. Check my engine light.
Right. That's what I do. Yeah. So, but they do that. They don't just get mad. Like, why is the light on?
Yeah.
So, but oftentimes that's what we do that with our own body. And what's more important, our body or our car? We're just, I feel like we're putting our car on a pedestal. It's like, we'll fix the actual problem for the vehicle. Sure. But when it comes to our body, we want to put a Tylenol, or we want to put some cream on it to fix it. But that's not the actual root cause. So we should really work on fixing our root causes in our body. And then you can function better, and you can sleep better, and you can have better mental health. Like, you might not go insane every day. You're not a lost cause. Lots of people, I'm sure, they feel like they're a lost cause and that they have no hope, but there's always hope. if for physical traumas and mental traumas, anything you're going through, there's always hope and there's always a way to heal and revive.
Amen. Going back to the car, you say to yourself, if you pulled into the mechanic and all of a sudden your check engine light's on, and he takes out a can of black spray paint and goes shh, and sprays over the check engine light, and you say, okay, you're good. You'd be like, what do you mean I'm good? Like,
right.
Your car's fine. The check engine light, you don't see it anymore. And that's what happens a lot of times with people with symptoms. And that may be what happened with that family. I don't know, because I don't know the details. But a lot of times people cover up the symptom as opposed to addressing the cause. And one of the things we want to do at Pain and Revival each week is we want to get people to really focus on whatever your health issue is, whether it's a physical issue, chemical issue, psychological issue, spiritual issue. Each week we're going to tap onto something a little bit different to try and get people's mindsets to open up a little bit and put these things out into social media. And that's why we ask everybody to share our posts and our podcast, is because the more people that understand that, you know what, there's people like Nevaeh at 15 years of age and myself, who was in practice over 37 years, that still care so much about people and still care about so much about people's overall health in every aspect of it, that we want our podcast to go around the world so people understand, you know what, there's people that care about you. There's people that love you. And we're going to give you basic tips on how to take care of that.
Yeah.
Anything else you got to say, my girl, before we close this one out?
I'm good, I think.
We love you guys. We appreciate you. We're praying for you. Have a blessed day.
Yep. Bye.